Hello, duelists. We are into September 2023 somehow. Time sure flies, but I am back to do another deck review. If you've watched any of my Master Duel, or even where this channel started out, you know that I like to play Mekk Knights. They got softened a bit on the ban list at the end of August, and I'm here to explore. I've played a few duels already, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. They're not at where they were of Tier 1, because the ban list is still impacting them for sure. But I want to kind of talk through actually two different deck types that you could use it with. I'll walk through what I have here, then I'll go to the other version and talk a little bit about just the deck in general. So the limitations right now, so when this deck came out, there was nothing on the ban list other than I think World Legacy Secret, meaning you could use your limited 3 on trap cards that were very, very powerful. The monsters, you could do whatever you want, and all of that. Now the ban list is here, so both Purple Nightfall and World Legacy's Memory are limited 3. You want 2 Purple Nightfalls and 1 Memory. Limited 2, both Blue Sky and Indigo Eclipse are in the limited 2 list, so you have to pick your poison there. The other variation I'm going to show after has a different setup with the 2 here. Talk about that later, but that is one of the biggest differences. And that is how the ban list affects this deck. If it was at full power, it would be ridiculously strong, and two of the effects that the deck brings out are borderline timeless in my opinion, because you can shut down monster effects, you can shut down trap effects, and you can shut down battling monsters in different columns, which, not totally shutting down battle, but can go a long way towards it. So yeah, there's a lot to be done here. Now the first thing I'll point out is playing Mekk Knights in Duel Links is much different than playing Mekk Knights in Master Duel for many reasons. One being the card pool is much smaller in Duel Links. That is true of all decks for that matter, but the other thing, and I think the most relevant, is the coin toss, which we don't typically talk about. In Master Duel, the winner of the coin toss, the winner of the coin toss picks, do you go first or second? Okay. But in Duel Links, the coin gets flipped and you go first or second. There's no selection. Now, the reason that I say that that's such a big deal is because in Master Duel, almost every deck wants to go first, other than Mekk Knights. There are other exceptions, but for the most part, every meta deck wants to go first. So, if your opponent wins the coin toss, they go first. If you win the coin toss, you go second. Those both mean that you go second. So I found that playing Mekk Knights and Master Duel, you go second probably 90+% of the time. Really nice. But in Duel Links, it means you go first 50% and second 50%. That's a huge difference because this deck really, really benefits from going second. Now, that also impacts the composition of the deck. If you go first, your goal is often to get something like either Swap Cleric out or Avram out, Link Summon into either Imduk or Link Disciple. You then bring out a Mekk Knight monster, hopefully, and then can go into Morningstar after that. If you have another monster, you can discard it, bring out World Legacy Secret, and then plan to bring a monster back next turn, shut down monster effects, and you're pretty good company. You obviously have other traps here that you can, and spells that you can activate next turn to make things work a little bit better. Now, that is your best case scenario going first. You're not going to get like a full board set up and things like that generally. Now, going second is when things can flow very nicely, because all of the Mekk Knight monsters that are above level 4, basically anything that's not Avram, can be special summoned. You can special summon as many as you want per turn, other than just the exception that each one can only be special summoned from your hand once per turn. But you can flow through all the monsters here. You can do a lot, and it works really well. That's the big thing to point out. Now, the engine basically works through either Memory or Purple Nightfall first off. I can play Memory, I can use that to bring out Purple Nightfall. Now when you use Memory, the card goes, it allows you to bring a card out, a Mekk Knight monster, put it on your field in defense position, and then it goes back to your hand at the end of the turn. However, you bring out Purple Nightfall, you activate its effect, and now this is no longer in play. Activating its effect will let you pick a Mekk Knight monster from your deck, search it to your hand. Awesome. You generally are going to search blue sky. You're going to put blue sky in the column of your opponents that has the most cards in it, and you can draw Mekk Knight monsters up to the number of cards in that column. If you're really lucky, there's going to be 3, so like a spell trap, monster, and then extra monster, and you can draw 3 cards, which is just fantastic. From there, you go to town. You have Yellow Star that can destroy back row. You have Red Moon that can destroy monsters. And then you can link summon, you can exceed summon, you can do a lot of different things from there, but that's your way to wipe monsters off the board. You're generally going to play either Monster Move or Tie That Binds. In the past, I've played Tie That Binds. I've been using Monster Move recently. I don't have a strong preference, but I think I'm going to be working on Monster Move for the time being. And yeah, so the rest to mention here are just kind of typical stuff. 2 Book of Moons, Forbidden Lance for a little bit of protection against spells. We don't have any of that. The deck can shut down. So World Legacy Secret, any column that has a monster effect, any column where you have a Mekk Knight monster and your opponent activates a monster effect, you can negate that effect immediately. Same thing goes for World Legacy Key. Any column where you have a Mekk Knight monster, you can stop a trap effect from going off. I didn't play this card in the past, but I'm trying it out here, and I think it may work pretty well, because one trap card going off, like Needle Sealing, can totally change the complexion of a duel. So I think it is worth it to have one in your deck. Everything else is pretty straight explanatory. Forbidden Lance 1, Cosmic Cyclone. I mean, Pendulum monsters are still pretty common, so it allows you to get rid of the Pendulum Zone there, and especially if they're using Pendulum Call, those cards technically can't be destroyed the next turn, so here we can banish them. I go back and forth in the other traps to use. For now, I'm using Fiendish Chain, and the reason for that is you can obviously negate an effect as well as stop from attacking. You could easily say, well, why would you do that when you have World Legacy Secret? But a few reasons. First off, you may not have Secret out yet, or be able to search it, or they may have destroyed it, and then you basically lose access to that, which you don't want to do. Or in general, if the card gets put in a column that isn't one that has a Mekk Knight monster, then it'll still work there. And I also like that they are continuous traps, because you need cards in different zones that you can have at least 2 cards in the column to special summon the Mekk Knight monster. So I'm picking that for now. If you go a different direction, totally fine. Makes sense. Now for the extra deck, obviously we're going to go into Morningstar here. You can play 2 of them. I would probably get rid of Nightmare Unicorn instead. Possibly the Cipher Blade. But I'm playing 1 for now because the duels are usually so short that you don't get time to go into 2, and there's usually other options at that point anyway. Nightmare monsters, pretty self-explanatory. I mean, they're in pretty much every deck here these days. We have our 2 Link 1s. Those are for, as I mentioned earlier, either using Swap Cleric or Avram to Link Summon and help you get more monsters in the field. And then the other monsters are here for flexibility. So we have Dingirsu. Sure, you know him if you play Duel Links. Pretty common through the Orcust era, which is coming to an end, thank God. And we do have the Cipher Dragon that's going to require our 2 level 8, so we're going to use typically a Purple Nightfall and an Indigo Eclipse, bring it out, and then we can also go into Cipher Blade, activate both effects, and good game when that goes off. That's the basis of it. I'm going to release a good number of games with this. I don't know if I'll play it during the KC Cup. I am considering it, but I want to see how viable it is. It's not fully unbanned by any means. It probably won't be for a while, but it's still going to win you duels. And the last thing I can mention is, especially with Key and Secret, many players aren't going to know this deck these days, and they're going to go ahead and put cards in the column. They're going to try to activate, and you can just stop it. They're not going to read your card effects, and maybe when this deck was really popular, people were going to be aware, but either they forgot, there's going to be new players, or things like that. So you're going to get away with a lot because your opponent just won't read. I've learned that so much with Master Duel. They just don't read your card effects and they lose because of it. So that's one thing to mention. And I'll jump back to the other deck that I'm considering trying. I'll just highlight the differences because I covered pretty much what every card does in that last video. But really the difference is just having 2 blue skies instead of an Indigo Eclipse. It seems like a small change, but it's really going to enable you to draw through more. And I added 1 Red Moon, a second one, because of that. And I may add a second Yellow Star if I play this way as well. Now, what that means also is that there's more focus on the level 7 monsters, and it's pretty easy to bring out multiple of them. With that too, I can change around the extra deck. I added a second Morning Star, I added a Big Eye, and I added a Darkest Dragon Doom Rider. Focused on the level 7s a bit more. Big Eye, there can be, I mean, with both of them, there could be a little bit of a, they both play a bit defensively at times. Well, I should say that Darkest Dragon Doom Rider plays a little defensively. Big Eye doesn't. Big Eye can destroy someone with its effects there, but you just have to be careful because you put it in a column, and then especially if you're playing Big Eye, you steal an opponent's monster, you can no longer activate the effects of Secret when you already have a monster in that column. So you have to be a little bit careful, but they're more for situational use anyway, and I think there's a good logic to this approach. I just have to figure out if it's the best one or even like the one I prefer the most. So this is Mekk Knights in September 2023. You know I had to put the video out, so let me know what you think. Will you consider playing it, or is this garbage and toxic and all that fun stuff? So thanks for tuning in.